Today, an introductory lesson for all viewers of active self-protection. If you pull a gun on the cops, the local constabulary will take umbrage. I know that's a shocking revelation, but it's true. Welcome to today's badge cam lesson here at Active Self-Protection. I'm your host, John Correa.
I'm your co-host, Mike Williver. Today's video comes to us from my old stomping grounds in the place I grew up, Washington, D.C. Go Commanders.
The Filster Enigma is a revolutionary holster chassis system that completely divorces your holster and gun from your clothing, giving you unprecedented concealment whether in sweatpants or formal wear. It attaches to your AIWB holster via the wing and allows incredible flexibility for your concealed carry. Get yours at the link below.
Call has come into 911 of a man who was arguing in his front yard with two women by his car, who has then drawn a gun and threatened them with it. And so the officers are going to show up to this call expecting to find a man with a gun. Sure enough, they are going to find a guy who is matching the description of what the 911 caller has said that guy looks like. So you're going to see him here come into the neighborhood. They showed up pretty quick because they're still standing outside arguing when the officers arrived. So they were at least in the neighborhood. And you're going to see here, the officer's going to be pretty chill with the guy at first because he's going to see him coming down the block here, and he's going to kind of walk him down the block and try to talk him back into him. We have badge cam audio from here, so let's listen in. We have a couple of different badge cams here.
Last copy, 38 copy, disarmed. What are they waiting for, a transport?
Hey, sir. Excuse me, sir.
By chance, any transport about free?
Excuse me, sir.
2900 block of King.
Excuse me, sir. Go. Can you keep your hands up for me? Yeah. Can you stop? Can you stop? Stop. 2-1 with a priority. 2-1 with a priority. Black bill. Black pants. Gray t-shirt. He's running down Dean's Milk. Support to stay on the road. He's got a gun in his pocket. Go. Pull it out. 1033, I'm hit. Shots fired.
Shot male. Hit multiple times. Officer hit. Taylor Road at Gainesville.
Hey, we good?
You good?
I'm good. Let me check we're good.
The first officer, you heard him say he was hit, and that he did survive his injuries and is making a full recovery. They've been pretty cagey about whether or not he was hit by fire from the perp or fire from a fellow officer, the other guy that was there right behind him. They've been pretty cagey about that. Our perp ended up shuffling off this mortal coil at the end of this one. He did not survive his injuries, and thankfully no one else was harmed. I mean, go Commanders?
Yep.
Come on. My thing is, why isn't their mascot Cobra Commander?
That's a good point, actually.
Until they get Cobra Commander, no, we call him the commies.
Someone's watching this in the DC area. If you have season tickets and you don't show up dressed as Cobra Commander in burgundy and gold, what are you even doing?
What are you doing? I really do think there's an interesting point at the beginning of this one, Mike, because our officer is very, I don't want to say timid, but he's very chill with this guy. And he's like, hey, sir, can you come here? Can we talk for a minute? So he's really requesting and being very kind to this guy because, of course, right now he's just kind of, got reasonable suspicion. Crime is afoot. I'm not sure if this is the right guy. And trying to gain compliance via request seems like a good idea, though I know some people are going to say he should have just ran up and tackled this guy.
Well, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, right? This is my old stomping grounds, the DMV, DC, probably Southeast. Crime is afoot. Yes. The answer is yes, crime is afoot at all times in that neighborhood, unfortunately. Now, with that said, listen, you can't go wrong. Oh, go Commanders, by the way. You can't go wrong just being cool with people, right? I mean, there's times to yell and scream, but those times are really few and far between. Those are like emergency communication type situations, right? So if you can be cool with somebody, if this is the wrong guy, right? If this is just some other guy who happens to be wearing the same, clothing in that same neighborhood, and you're yelling and screaming at him for no reason, look, he's going to go away with a negative impression of the police for no reason, right? If you're cool with him and it's the bad guy, that's fine. Okay, you were cool with him. And if he decides to raise the temperature, if he decides to run or pull a gun or whatever, well, then we can escalate things, you know, and you know, bring them up to 11, as I like to say. But there's no need for that initially. Again, we're trying to engender trust in the police. We're trying to prevent some of that recent erosion in trust in law enforcement. So as an officer approaching someone, just be cool until it's time to not be cool anymore.
Yeah, and I just want everybody to know we are not rooting for the Commanders until they make a deal with Hasbro that Cobra Commander is their mascot. And once they do, then that's fine. Also, everybody knows that God's football team is the San Francisco 49ers, and that's why he makes sunsets crimson and gold. All right, let us know in the comment who your favorite football team is and why. But I really like that here. Hey, be cool until it's time not to be cool, right? That's like a Roadhouse reference right there. And recognize that when it's time to raise the temperature, you raise the temperature. And I think the officer did a really good job of that here. Now, of course, this guy knows he's in trouble, right? He's got a gun that there's no way that that's a registered firearm. There's no way he's got a DC concealed carry permit. It's a giant pain to get a carry permit in DC, though ostensibly anybody can. And so he recognizes he's going to be in pretty big trouble here, so he decides to take off. Okay, fine, but let's sing another chorus here. We say this so many times. This is a lesson for the felons who watch the channel. If you don't want to get killed by the police running from the cops, don't touch the gun, because when you touch the gun, and we see multiple officers showing up here, is that he decides to pull the gun here, and that's when the officer sees a deadly threat. Tennessee versus Garner, the standard is very clear. If he is not an immediate threat of death or great bodily injury to the officer or to the community, the officer is not justified to use deadly force. But at the second he gets a gun in his hand, he's running from an officer who's given him lawful commands, and then he gets a gun in his hand, the officer can reasonably fear for his own life and for the lives of the community in that case. So, and yet again, Mike, we sing another chorus of don't put a gun in your hands if you don't want to get shot by the cops.
Yeah, this is one of those ones where, look, this is how you get yourself shot in the back by the police, okay? That's just bottom line. And look, this is going to be one of the ones potentially where there's going to be all this community outrage because the police, you know, senselessly gunned down this young man and shot him in the back for no reason. No, they would have been absolutely justified in shooting him here. They showed great restraint by not doing that in this moment. I do want to address something we just saw on both these officers' badge cams, and that is them clearly on the radio. You can see their hand covering the badge cam because they're talking on their pork chop mic. Why didn't we say something about that? Why aren't we upset about that? Because they're in a foot pursuit, right? They're not in a shooting right now. And in a foot pursuit, especially in an area like this, there's all sorts of alleys and breezeways and whatnot. You want to get officers on the other side of where this guy is to cut him off. So the radio usage was 100% justified. No problem there. Just in case you were considering that. And do write "Go Commanders" in the comments. Thank you.
And recognize, like, yeah, in that moment, you need to be on the radio because you need to say, you go that way, I'm going this way, or this is where we are, so that they can make a decision about how to help you in that moment. That's a really good thing. So again, does this officer need to shoot this guy? Absolutely and unequivocally yes. This is absolutely justified use of deadly force every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Now, there is an interesting thing here. If you go read the news stories, you go check it out. Our officer is going to put some rounds down this way towards this guy, and then there's another officer out back behind him. And you notice that right here. You can just barely see him kind of behind our perp. And the PD was pretty quiet about whether the round that hit the officer, you heard him say I'm hit, whether that round came from the perp or came from a fellow officer who shot at him as well. I don't know. I don't know who that is. But the fact that they're being a little cagey about it, and I don't see the fact that they found any spent casings from the perp, leads me to think that at least there's some high probability that this was a blue on blue. And this is a reminder to all of our officers that your marksmanship skills really matter. And even if you're like, dude, I need to shoot that guy, if your backstop is an innocent, and that includes your fellow officers, you can't shoot, guys.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say there's a better than average chance that the officer whose badge camera watching who pulled the trigger. First of all, I also don't know who shot the other officer. It could have been this officer. It could have been the suspect. I don't know. With that said, there's a better than average chance that under these circumstances, he's like, this guy's got a gun. I'm chasing him. He could turn around and shoot me at any moment. He probably has a fair amount of tunnel vision, right? He probably has a fair amount of auditory exclusion. There's a really good chance he never even perceived that officer was in the background. If you are management with MPD, I need you to not be reluctant to release this information. It's, if this is what happened, it was an accidental shooting, I think it's the most forgivable accidental accidental shooting in the world. This is a dynamic situation. The guy's running. He's a grave danger to the community. This officer made, I believe, the most honest mistake you can make if he did shoot his partner. Get the information out there. Just tell everybody what happened. Tell the community what happened. And have this officer who did the shooting and the one who got shot, have them speak at every academy class about their experience. There's no reason to put this stuff under the rug if that's in fact what's going on here.
Yeah, so I think transparency is the way, right? And that way we explain when things go right. We own stuff when it goes wrong. We recognize that mistakes happen. We hire humans, right? Every single police officer is drawn from the human race. Now, our officer who was hit and shot as well, I want you to notice something here. He's running a Glock. That's a great pistol. He has a failure to feed here. And this malfunction is very clearly the old round has ejected and the new round has not fed all the way in. We train a lot of people at active self-protection and live handgun skills, and we see Glocks do this. We see other brands as well. Glocks are a little bit prone to this. And when this happens, they are dry as popcorn farts. This happens to dry Glocks. And what we find is dirty guns tend to run just fine, but dry guns run like crap. So the lesson here is, I know somebody's gonna be like, well, you gotta be able to clear a malfunction. That's part of your responsibility as a firearms carrier. The bigger lesson here is lube your stinking gun. And if you don't lube your gun, you're gonna have problems like this.
Yes, one of my old buddies on a task force from El Cajon PD once said, I want you to lube that thing till it's smoking like a weed whacker engine. And that's an exaggeration, obviously. But look, there's an old, it could be apocryphal, I don't know if it's true or not, but there's an old story in law enforcement about some like NYPD or Chicago PD patrol, beat cop who never made it past officer, never made sergeant, never made detective. And he was in his, in a uniform his whole career for, 58 years. And when he retired, he turned in his duty belt and his gun was fused to the holster because he never took it out, right? He never cleaned it. He never practiced. He never went to qualify. Listen, you've got to lube this gun. Any modern gun that any modern U.S. law enforcement agency is going to issue you is probably a good gun. It's probably sufficient to do the job. It might not be an HK, it might not be a fancy, super cool gun, but this Glock's fine. It'll do the job, but you got to keep it lubricated. Like John said, a slightly dirty gun is not the end of the world. Like, I like cleaning my gun. Some people don't. You can go quarters and quarters without cleaning your gun, but you got to keep it lubricated. Otherwise, this is the sort of thing that happens. I would rather that you train to keep your gun lubed and avoid the malfunction rather than have to clear the malfunction. Malfunction clearance is only necessary when a malfunction is induced somehow. Let's avoid that.
Yeah, me personally, I don't care about cleaning. I've got my training gun right now has around 8,000 rounds through it without being cleaned, and it runs fine because I lube it regularly. So, I'm not telling you not to clean your gun, okay? Clean your gun as much as you want. That's my training gun too, not my carry gun. My carry gun is kept a little bit cleaner, certainly kept lubricated, because that's the bigger issue. Is there also need to know how to clear a malfunction? Yes, you should know how to clear malfunctions. Get some firearms training. Come over to Active Self-Protection Extra. We teach malfunction clearance in those kinds of issues, so then that way you can get your gun back in the fight quickly if, God forbid, it ever happens to you. Second officer, as this guy comes around the corner in this moment, this is just the clearest case of justified use of deadly force that we could possibly have. We've just heard a bunch of gunshots and dude rounds the corner with a gun in his hand. Is this guy in immediate threat of death or great bodily injury to the officer? Yes. The officer then draws his pistol and fills this guy in and does his work. Good for him on that. I do think it's kind of interesting though, Mike, he had just heard gunshots a couple of seconds before and had not drawn his gun yet. I think in that case, when I start hearing gunshots, I want a gun in my hand.
Yeah, that's actually, I might push back a little on that. A tough call. I think you put a gun in your hand the second you think you need to. So if for you that's when you hear gunshots, great. If for you it's when you see the threat, it comes around the corner, great. The important thing is to recognize danger. There's so many times we've seen on these videos where the officer didn't appear to recognize that there was a threat, didn't recognize that he or she was in danger. Not the case here. This officer drew and did what he had to do in that moment. It takes incredible bravery to do law enforcement well, right? Anyone can get the job and do the job, but doing the job well takes bravery, and these officers did a fantastic job.
They really did a fantastic job. And, I do love it. I want you all to recognize, Mike and I don't always agree 100%. We have a vast, state of agreement on the best things to do here. But sometimes you're like, I'm not so sure about that. Okay, fine, we do it this other way. And this officer did great. I'm not giving him a hard time about not having a gun in his hand. Last thing I want to mention here, as this guy goes down, officer does a good job of covering him. Our other officer needs his first aid kit out. I'm hit. You need your first aid kit on your person. and you need to know how to use it. And yes, should you have one for your buddy as well? Yes, every on-duty cop needs to have a good, stout, full medical kit, not in the car, not back where they abandoned the vehicle a ways away, but on your person, because you don't want to start with a sprint to go back to the vehicle in order to render aid. Finally here, our dude had what looks to be a high-quality pistol. And I want to recognize here, this high-quality pistol, there's no chance that he has a valid DC carry permit. And there's no chance that that's a legally registered firearm in DC. So where did it come from? It almost certainly came out of somebody's unlocked car. That's the #1 vector for felons getting firearms, friends, and that is out of unlocked vehicles. And so don't leave cars full of guns. Don't leave your stuff around to get stolen and end up being used in a crime.
Oh, sorry. No, I was going to add, also, by the way, this is something we kind of joke about, but don't put Glock Perfection, HK, Smith & Wesson stickers on the back of your car and, this Second Amendment, this will defend, 3%, all that stuff. That is a giant billboard to these thieves saying, hey, there's probably a gun in here. Come get it, right? At the end of the day, John and I agree on one thing, 100%. These officers were incredibly brave to go into this neighborhood, recognize the threat, and put a stop to it, frankly. It's sad that someone lost their lives, but that guy made the decision, right? He put the quarter in the jukebox. He's got to dance to the entire song. And at the end of the day, these officers did a fantastic job and covered their ass.